Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 37 of Diary of a Sales Engineer. I'm Ryan Krueger, joined with my favorite co-host,
Sameer Sahay-Kausar, and today we've got an exciting topic, and it is one that Ryan and I talk about back and forth of just how fast the industry, the sales engineering, pre-sales, solutions consulting, solution industry is changing. And we were like, you know what, let's talk about it so we can see what we can do to keep our finger on the pulse and also give you guys some things that we're seeing within the space in order to help you try to stay prepared with all of the various different changes, the new names that we have, our favorite forward deploy engineer, which Ryan and I had talked about earlier on the pod earlier this year. We want to know what this is. We peeled back the onion and it was a sales engineer. So I guess what prompted this, a lot of it is actually some inspiration from Solution Exec, which if you have not heard of them, run by James Kakis and Jeff Margulies, and really focused on giving a space for solutions executives to go and talk about what's going on. But they put out a newsletter recently about how the global role of that position is changing and shifting. And it got us thinking about, okay, if the global leadership level is shifting, like what does it mean for us as ICs, and how are we needing to understand what's happening at the macro leadership level, and how is that going to affect us? So I think this episode, we really want to talk about what I'm seeing on the ground, what Ryan's seeing on the ground, to see if we can give you guys some insights. So I think one of the places that to start is, I think the term pre-sales it needs to be retired. I think it really just silos us to think about, okay, we only focused on the prospect journey. And once that prospect turns into a customer, we're out. So maybe we'll start there, Ryan. What do you think about that concept of pre-sales? And in my opinion, I think it's a misnomer, but I want to hear your thoughts on it.
it's definitely a misnomer. Like if I think about my entire career in sales engineering, solution consulting, whatever you want to call it, ever since I've started, there's always been a post-sales portion of the role. It just depends how much post-sales stuff are you actually doing and handling. I think maybe at the biggest sort of tech companies in the world, maybe there are sales engineers that all they do is show up, demo, and move on. Maybe that is a role. It's just not a role in which I have interacted with a ton of folks. Typically, most SEs I know are through the entire prospect buying journey, through sales to post sales handoff. And then most SEs will typically be included on some post sales motions. Even if you have a technical account manager or TAM, it's there still might be some SE involvement. And typically the best SE to be involved is typically you, because you know the account better than anyone else. But I think really where the basis of this is coming into play is that the market overall is changing, right? The market itself is changing. AI has shifted a lot of technology companies in general. One, companies are starting to do the most with the least amount of people, meaning the idea that you are a siloed role that only does X and you do not exist in Y, Z, or A, B, and C is kind of crazy, because at the end of the day, most companies can't have that many resources staffed. So you're just going to have to be an SE that does X, Y, Z, A, B, and C. It just depends on the day in which you're waking up and putting on that hat, right? So it's sort of one change to the market that's driving some of this stuff, where you as a pre-sales engineer, you are very much going to be pre and post sales to some capacity. The second change, this is a change that I'm seeing too, is that with AI and token usage, it's kind of crazy, right? A year ago, companies like Facebook were advertising, hey, my engineer used the most tokens at the company. Here's an award. Yeah, right. Token maxing. Thank you, Sameer. Thank you for finding the exact word I was looking for. Token maxing was so popular. Okay. Now, a year later, everyone's like, oh my God, token efficiency. What do we do with all these tokens? But in this sort of token ecosystem that's been created over the last year, what we're seeing now from the frontier models, usage-based pricing. Now, usage-based pricing has been around for some industries, right? That's not totally new. And some SEs listening today, you've been selling usage-based pricing. But moving forward, most tech companies will start to migrate into this world of consumption-based pricing. I know Sameer and I listen to another very popular technology podcast, and they've been talking about this for years, is that this idea of per seat pricing is going to disappear. they have nailed that shift in the market. Like it is happening. I would envision that most companies migrate to this world of like consumption based pricing within a few years. Now, as like a consumption model exists, you as an SC will sell pre-sales, right? Like, hey, here's where you're at today, here's where you're going to get. But in selling that package, you're now going to have to drive consumption, right? In driving
Hmm.
consumption, that means you are going to exist in the post-sales capacity, even though it still might be in a sales role. It's kind of interesting. Like I didn't tell you this, Samir, before we got before we got started today. In my head, I was noodling on a role today while I was taking a shower. I've coined the term account engineer, and honestly, like I really believe like that role is going to exist for like your account executives, right? Like you are going to be an account engineer where like either you're a selling SE today and like you just migrate into account engineer where like you own pre to post, but you're a very technical seller. I have like a new role I was thinking of. It's not much of a difference to what exists today, but forward deploy engineering, I think really could potentially become forward deploy solution engineering. Okay. Because that's really what I see the role of a forward deploy engineer being is that you are going to be more technical than the account engineer. You are going to exist in a pre and post sales capacity, but you are still going to be focused on the solutions that you drive, meaning we'll kind of take away that sales title a little bit, but you're still going to be focused on like the consumption of the product, which in fact is sales. But we'll call it solutions because solutions are going to be what drives consumption. And I was actually thinking about this in my head. I wish I had told you this actually prior to getting started, but I think this is good for our conversation today.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the biggest things that you said there is the solution is going to drive consumption. And the people who understand the solution the most and understand the customer problem are going to be the one to help connect those dots. And that's literally us as SCs. We are the most educated on the customer's problem, what they're trying to do, and how our solution can actually solve for that. And then when you drive the pricing around it and it's now consumption based, all of a sudden the incentives are to get the customer to use the product as much as possible. And the way they're going to use the product as much as possible is to show them that, hey, this is your problem. This is what you're trying to solve. This is your objective. Here is your roadmap. Here is your blueprint. You follow this blueprint that I have created for you because I have listened very attentively. I have the technical chops. I have the consultative mindset of putting out this plan together. And if you follow this plan, you will solve all your problems. You will win. You're going to consume, we'll call it tokens and, for this case, but consume whatever X is that we're selling. I win. And you're going to look good to your boss because all of a sudden you guys are getting value, we're getting value, and everyone's winning. But it all starts with that person who is the SC right now. I think the SCs are, we've talked about this in other episodes. We are in the best position to reap this kind of chaotic time because we are just sitting in the middle of the all the mess. We have engineering, building faster than they've ever built before with the help of coding agents. We have sales going in and starting to figure out new playbooks, new ways of selling. And we are right there in the middle, understanding the customer problems, customer needs, and how they all fit together. So I do agree with you. I don't know if forward deploy solution engineer, it's a little bit of a word jumble there. FDC, FDSE. So that we'll have to workshop that one. But no, I do see what you're saying and definitely agree with that. And I also think that for so long, I was like so anti doing any post sale stuff. I was like, okay, once the deal is signed, like I'm out. All right, I'm done. Like on to the next one. Let's go close more business. But more and more, as I've been working so closely with customers now, I think over the last like year and a half, 2 years in my role, I'm doing a lot more customer work. It's like, okay, this is actually where the big unlock is going to be. Because when you've closed the deal and you get the customers live and help them achieve their actual goal that you sold to, I mean, one, it's more rewarding for me personally, and two, then it helps you like understand product more. And I feel like I've just learned a lot more of how like product itself is structured and like user experience and where the actual gaps are. And because I've learned those gaps in the product, it makes me a better seller. And then I just keep feeding on this feedback loop and constantly learning more and more. And over the last like 2 years of doing this, I have just learned way too much. It's like overflowing. But yeah, we are in the best spot to take advantage of this, but it's also like candidly just like super hard. I think that like being an SC right now is really difficult because AI is constantly updating. There's new models everywhere. Originally, people were like, which model should we use? Which model should, now everyone's like, don't worry about the model. Like figure out the architecture because we can go get a Chinese model that can do it for a fifth of the price. And we don't need the frontier models to do, our email responses. And you're like, oh my God, what do I even focus on? So if we like pull it back, I think the real focus is being the expert in the customer's. And I think if you are the expert in the customer's problem and understand how to build that roadmap for them to solve that problem with your solution, like you're going to be indispensable.
Yeah, this is interesting. I've been thinking about this too. Like, and then I'll hit on like what you mentioned there. You're right. Like where things are actually like changing and evolving to with these models, right? Because like there's a lot of questions from SEs to me, which is like, hey, like what model should I go learn, and like where should I focus my time on, within AI? Well, honestly, like what's going to happen in the next couple of years is that everything is going to go on-prem. So like we went from on-prem to the cloud, and now we're going to migrate back to, back to on-prem. I keep thinking about like all the SEs that have been around for either that like whole journey, or even the SEs that have been specifically focused on like the prem to cloud, and now they're going to do cloud to prem. Like, wow, those guys are all really, those guys and girls are all really set up for a lot of success, right? Because like they already know the talk tracks, and that industry is just going to boom once again because they're going to have to teach everyone of how to bring everything back to on premise, having like these local models do 90% of what they need to do, and then leveraging for the 10%, the sort of like best in class, what a frontier model needs to do. But even then, like if I were to ask you, you'd be like, hey, the difference between like Opus 4.8 and 4.4, like don't get me wrong, like 4.8, I get some better results out of like certain things I'm looking to do, but most of what I need to do could exist on 4.4, let alone probably like 4.1. Like,
Now we could run
so
everything off of Sonnet, dude. Like, or
yeah,
you could like, I mean, you could even do everything off of like GPT-4. Like, I like candidly, uh, I'm talking more of like knowledge work. Like coding, I think is a different
yeah,
a
different beast.
different domain. But for like a lot of the knowledge work and just like crunching of information and kind of synthesizing stuff, like you don't need the frontier models. I've like found that it's unnecessary. And honestly, sometimes like using the frontier models to do some of like the knowledge work that I'm doing, or like building documentation, or like synthesizing information, or asking questions about transcripts, and like putting a bunch of them together. And sometimes the like frontier models are just like it's too much. It's like I'm taking a nail gun to do something that I just need like a small little hammer. Like I don't need a nail gun to like staple my papers together. Like
Yeah.
it's just a little bit ridiculous. So that's going to be really interesting. But what's interesting, what you said, and we're going to go off a tangent here, but I'm firing away on this tangent because it is going to go on-prem. But I also think that SaaS is not going to go away. What's going to go on-prem is the LLMs and using a locally hosted model to just do that labor. But you're still going to have your like infrastructure in the cloud as far as all your like SaaS applications. So you're going to have this like duality of, all right, we have all of our, let's call it our plumbing in the cloud still, because it's just more easily like distributed. But then you're going to have my like AI, like specifically LLMs, like locally hosted. And that's going to be an interesting architecture. And that's also going to be an interesting place to play as an SC, because that architecture and designing all of that,
The
they'll
security, right?
probably,
It's all around the security
yeah,
of the MCP, all around the security of the APIs. All that stuff becomes really like where SEs are going to have to live and exist at, right? Is I agree. Like, SaaS isn't probably going to go away from the cloud. Maybe there'll be certain SaaS problems that do get solved on-prem. I don't want to like say that won't happen, but majority are still going to happen in the cloud. But your LLMs are going to be locally hosted. And then you're also going to have like the frontier models still do things in the cloud, right? Like you're still going to have to make those call outs. So it's going to be like protecting that. But to this point, right? Like as we kind of like dive into this, right? I think like the big question to me, if I'm an SE today, is what skills do I need to survive? Like how do I survive the changing ecosystem as it exists today? What do I need to focus on? What do I need to get better at? What should I be learning? There's all these things. how do I stay up to date on like the latest and greatest image generation and PowerPoint generation while also really understanding under the hood what the underlying architecture is and how we're computing tokens and how we're compiling tokens. Like there's a lot of stuff. And if you wanted, you could spend every day, 24 hours a day doing research and you still would only know like 75% of the ecosystem because it is just impossible in this changing landscape as it is. Like truth. Okay. All right, we've set the stage now. Like, there's too much information. What do I need to focus on? I have some thoughts. Like, first and foremost, like, my thoughts are this. You should be using AI every single day. You should. Like, you have questions, comments, things that you do. You should have automated processes and jobs that do certain aspects of your life. You should be building skills. Like, I love skills. I think I've mentioned it before on here. Like, I am just such a huge proponent of what these skills can do. And honestly, I've built some pretty cool skills. Around that, though, like, I would also tell you all to focus and have like a Claude Code or Codex license. Like you should be playing around with how to build and develop tools, software, product functionality. I believe there's probably an ecosystem that exists in the near future for a lot of SEs in which you will actually create product functionality for gaps that you have within a sales process and push that to your main branch
It's happening
within your,
today.
yeah, it's happening
Like
today, right? Yeah, that's
I,
happening today, but
I literally
super
know
common.
people who found a gap in their product, SEs. They wrote code to fix it and they submitted a PR and it got into the product because like, I mean, engineering is overloaded. Just candidly, engineering is overloaded. I don't know one engineering team that is not overloaded. All my engineering friends are just like, yeah, we're slammed constantly. One of my other SE friends told me he there was some new up and coming feature that came out. It was very brand new. There was like this random edge case that he had a big demo coming up the next day. There was a bug in the system. He went to GitHub because he had access to it. He's like, oh, I know a little bit of front end. This is the line where I think it's messed up. He's like, hey, go check out line 441 to 444 to the engineer. I think the bug is here. And then the engineer's like, oh, yeah, that's right. Fixed it and sent it over. So like SEs are already doing this today. Large Fortune 500 companies and like small startups. Like I've heard stories from everywhere in between. So absolutely, not in the near future. It's happening right now, Ryan.
Yeah. Yeah, it's happening now. But I think like larger scale, as we look to the role of the SC, I believe that is going to be commonplace within a job description is that you will write and push code to solve customer slash prospect issues that are happening. Like I believe that will be a line item on a job description for the role of the SE. Because at the end of the day, you might not be like the biggest expert on how to write and ship code, but what you are the expert in is understanding customer problems and translating it into solutions. And that's where the gap exists today between sort of like I call it like pre-sales engineering as an SE and engineering as a whole is that, okay, I have a problem. I've documented said problem and business impact and value. But once I pass it on to an engineer, they don't know anything about the sort of like companies we sell into, the problems that we solve with the product, they simply just make the product, right? Like if I think about like your and I's experience when we work together, like around accounts payable, like understanding the accounts payable challenges that an individual faces, like you have got to be deeply embedded into the finance world to really understand that. Yet when you go and you pass that information along to product and engineering, they're removed from that not once, but twice removed. And so they're just like, tell me what to build and I'll go build it. But if they can't understand the problem, they don't understand the solution that they're designing, right? And so you get to play an important role into that, where now you can also create the solution that your customers will use and actually push that into their actual environment. And I think like that will change in the sense that as an SE, you will be asked to do that. Like it will no longer be a this is happening sometimes. Like as an SE, you will join a team and they're going to say, Ryan, you're going to have access to our code base. Sameer, you're going to have access to our code base. And as a portion of that, when you face these customer and prospect issues that you run into, we expect for you to go mock up, create designs, work internally to build up sort of like V1, V2, and then you'll work with like engineering and product to ship like the final version that lands in a customer's hands. Like that to me is where like I see things evolving to. So if
Mm-hmm.
you're an SE today and you don't have Claude or Codex installed, Go download it and build a passion project of your own to learn. Like for me, like when I did the OpenClaw project, I learned so much. Like there was so many different things that I was learning day in and day out because I had to start living the life of a developer again to make sure that I got it installed on my computer, that everything was safely secured and locked down, that it had no access to any of my personal information. Like there was tons of learning that went on there. So a little passion project went a long way for me to actually expand my knowledge. As a part of that open cloud project, guess what I got exposed to? Skills, right? Like I got exposed to actual skills. And I was like, oh wow, a skill can do that. That's crazy. Let me actually see that. And so yeah, as an SE, like I think those are a few of the skills that jump out to me right away. Is like you are gonna have to get a little bit more technical in that regards of just understanding how to build, write, and push code and ship product. But there's one piece of this overarching that I think I do not want SEs to forget about. It's the soft skills. You have
Mhm.
got to figure out how to translate complex problems into real business language and business solutions. Anybody's going to be able to mock up something, whether it works or not. Okay, that's one thing. The second piece though is can you explain to a business why it's important and why it matters to them? If you can't do that, it doesn't matter what you build. Like you can build amazing, great things, but if you can never convince an owner why it matters to them or what problem it actually solves and why that actually is something that they should care about and spend money on, they're never going to do it. Whether it's a consumption product or a per seat price, so it doesn't matter the end of the day, like core framing around sales is like you've got to be able to show somebody the value of the solution that they're using. And if you can't do that, none of this matters. So don't forget that at the end of the day, like you've got to do that simple thing. Most SEs forget that. And they just start to get into this realm of like, oh, let me tell you about 4.8 and the difference between my new locally hosted model. And here's what you'll do and blah, 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 blah. And architecture, yeah. Business owner, I don't care.
Yeah. I think a big thing that I want to double click of what you said is like engineering and customers, like the customer problem and what engineering building as like the organization get larger and larger, that distance becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And the only way that there is some sort of connection is literally through us. And maybe like if you have a really good product manager, like who's also very much in lockstep with the SC organization. And so I think translator, like SEs are translators. I'm pretty sure we've said that multiple times. And it's very much will always be true. So I like another skill just to double down on is being able to like deeply understand that function that you're working within, that vertical. Like we work together on accounts payable. Like there are so many different verticals that you may be in, whether it's helping small businesses or working with developers or doing something in networking. Like you need to be able to understand that the functional knowledge, right? The three pillars of sales engineering. We have a functional knowledge, you have your technical knowledge, and you have your sales knowledge. Like the reason why we are kind of a difficult species to come together is because those three things are very broad and very different in a variety of reasons. And being able to jump from the functional use case to how does that like translate into the technical problem is a very unique skill. And then going into the sales motion all within one sentence, like that is a very unique skill. So not losing that and like focusing on, okay, my customers' problems. Let me deeply understand those problems. And then I also need to deeply understand my technology. And now how do I take those problems of my customer and show them, hey, this is exactly how our technology and our solution will help you solve that. And that skill is not it's not something you can go watch like a YouTube video and go like learn. It is something where you have to go play with something like an open claw project. You have to go play with maybe, hey, I'm new to the accounts payable space. There was that like lemonade stand.
Yeah, so that was the
PD.
famous lemonade stand. For those that aren't aware, this is a famous financial exercise. There's a giant PDF out there somewhere on the lemonade stand. It will teach you all the different things about accounting that you need in the finance space. You want to become a finance SE, go learn the
Yeah.
lemonade. But what Samir's getting at here is that there are ways for you to go get domain expertise. There's ways for you to go get technical expertise. There are ways for you to go get business acumen and sales expertise. The question is like, where do you focus on those different pillars, right? And when do you focus on one over the other, right? And figuring out where do I need to be at for all three of these to be really successful as an SE at the current company I'm at? Do I need to be a highly technical SE with some really good sales acumen and some decent product and domain expertise? Or do I need to have amazing product and domain expertise because the people I sell into expect that I know the life that they live in and how that relates to the business and sales acumen side? And I drop the technical expertise because we don't typically get into the technical conversation. Just depends what sort of industry you sell into, right? And who your sort of like persona is that you're going to meet with, right? You got to know like, who am I selling this to? What's my core target audience? What do they typically care about? They're going to ask me questions about the technological problem that we solve. They're going to focus on the business problem that we solve. I can tell you, like selling into finance, like you are hardly going to talk about the technical problem. You are going to talk about the business problem that it solves. Here is what your users do and experience today. Here is how their life gets better. And here is what it means to you, right? Here's the business impact, right? So when X users reduce the amount of time it takes to do one single thing, 10 minutes down to 1 minute, that's 9 minutes back for every single time. They do that a million times. Here's your 9 million, minutes back. And let's calculate that back to business value. And that's what a finance team cares about. They don't care about is like, hey, underneath the hood, here's what we did. Like that conversation comes up few and far between. Maybe like an infosec team comes along the way and
Yeah.
they'll do that, but not too much.
I think that's a great call out of knowing that we have three dials essentially, and which dial do I need to work on and when. And this is also knowing what your team is like, right? Like, and that's going to include your AE, your CSM, your like product person, your engineer, like understanding their strengths and more specifically their gaps and weaknesses, and that can maybe help be like, oh, my AE is really, really strong in the functional side because they used to be that function. I've worked with AEs who were in the finance space and became AEs because they really understood what was going on. And so I leaned on them to have a little bit of more of the functional knowledge. Also worked with AEs who lacked that functional knowledge, but were really, really good at the business acumen. And so would lean on them on that side and then fill in that gap. So know that sales is a team sport. You've probably heard that multiple times. And knowing what your teammates are good at and where they lack can also help you determine where can I put my focus. So not only the company and the business that you're in, but also those who you're interacting with. Because at the end of the day, you are selling together. And if everyone is good at the same thing, you're going to have gaps. So I would just like another call out is understand what your team is also good at, where you can lean on, where they can lean on you. And that can help also show you where you can kind of focus on skills. Because I mean, there's so much knowledge out there. It's so easy to learn. Maybe not easy is the wrong word. It's just, there is a wide variety of ways to learn. Like YouTube has been a great blessing. And now with like ChatGPT and Claude, like I could go be like, hey, explain to me like I'm five, blah. And all of a sudden you can go and consume that. But you have to be now strategic about what you go and learn because there's too much to learn and I need to figure out what is going to be the best thing for right now. Because what the best thing for today might not be the best thing for tomorrow. Like I've woken up and be like, all right, this is what I'm going to focus on this week. Come Tuesday, that plan went out the door because something new popped up that the focus shifts. So you have to be quick on your toes. I mean, that's probably another thing to like be aware of is like making a plan is good, but also understanding that the plan will change as part of the plan.
Yeah. And I think like this changes the lens of your leadership too, right? Like as an SE manager, as a director of solutions engineering, this landscape is changing. So what do I as a leader need to do to make sure that my team is focusing on the right dials and when? And knowing which of my teammates is best at each of those dials and telling them like, hey, go reach out to this teammate, go do this, right? So that way they know where to focus their time. So that way I'm building a best in class SE team in this evolving industry, right? So that way, if we are moving into more of like forward deploy engineering or forward deploy solutions engineering, whatever it is that they're evolving into, you're making sure that they have the skills to survive, right? So as a manager, what do I need to give them? How do I help my team evaluate where they're at and what they need to be working on? Like when I was when I first joined to NetSuite, I knew very little about finance, right? So I'm working on the lemonade exercise on the side. And there was a small little challenge on intercompany allocations that I just could not wrap my mind around. Just like no matter how many times I've read it, just like didn't really understand why a company would do it that way and why they would account for it. Sure enough, my manager says, "Hey, go reach out to Daniel. Okay, shout out Daniel on this on this one. Yeah, I'll give you a little tag in the comments. Look, I reached out to Daniel and he explained it to me, and in 2 minutes, I totally understood why. I was like, oh my god, like I've been reading about this for hours and I just don't get it. 2 minutes later, I fully understand why because he had done that at a previous organization. He's like, here's exactly why we did it. Here's what that process looked like. Let me explain to you, and boom, I understand it. So as a leader, if you know who on your team is really good at what, you can actually leverage that, right? So if today in the world of AI, you have a teammate that's really strong on the technical side, they've been following all the updates in AI, but then you have somebody that's really good on the business acumen side. And next thing you know, like the business acumen SE is kind of struggling because they need to start putting that into some of the technology, like maybe writing some skills around some of the business acumen. It's a good opportunity to pair them up and say, hey, you two need to work together because my business acumen SE, what I really need from you is to start evolving a couple of these technical skill sets. So that way you can actually pass this along to our customers to make sure that we're driving, some of the use cases that we want. And now they get that sort of like one-on-one training from somebody that's experiencing it versus just always telling people like, go to the internet and figure it out. Go to the internet, figure it out. Use AI and figure it out. Watch some YouTube and figure it out. Sometimes it's not the best way that people learn, man. Like
Mhm.
sometimes the best way people learn is like watching a podcast like this or hopping on with a teammate one on one or having a conversation on the phone for 2 seconds. Or maybe it is watching YouTube or maybe it is using AI, but sometimes people need that help a little bit. And so if you know as a leader how to help your team, I think that's like one amazing thing that you can really do. But I also think there's a second piece of leadership that is changing. If I look to like SE managers and something that I'm curious, Samir, like what your thoughts are on this. I believe in this fast changing ecosystem where products are changing and evolving so quickly. I believe that as an SE manager, as a director of SE, I still think that you should be heavily entwined into the deals because otherwise, like you're missing out on so many product updates that even though you might see the larger picture and vision of how to coach and manage your team, I think sometimes like you get pulled away too much from the technology where you don't fully understand and grasp this. So I do think as we look towards leadership in the future, I think leaders will be tasked to actually run a few opportunities still to make sure that they're like staying up to date with the product. Maybe they're like low stakes, or maybe they're just like super strategic accounts where there's still an SE working on it. There's some guidance on that front. But I do think in a changing ecosystem, one thing that's really important is making sure that you know where the product's at. If like you're always removed from the product and just coaching people, like you kind of forget what the product's doing and it kind of makes it a tough ecosystem.
Yeah, no, I really think the leaders should be just as dialed in as the ICs. I think a benefit of being a leader is you have more visibility across the organization, especially as larger and larger organizations get. Sometimes there are conversations that don't disseminate down to the IC level and have to come through the leader. And I think a big thing that SE leaders can do sometimes is as like an IC, we're kind of heads down, deal by deal. We're really focused on that one deal or 5 deals that we're trying to close this quarter. Almost like reminding us that hey, here is like the broader vision, right? This is where the company is going. This is what we're targeting. This is what we're trying to achieve. Reminding us that hey, this is why we are doing things in a certain way because it's really easy for us to get siloed and like just laser focused on just the one deal that we're working on at this moment that we were trying to get over the finish line because the quarter ends tomorrow. And I think it's huge. Another call out is understanding your team members' strengths and weaknesses, and like that's a big one because I'm not going to know that Ryan has done accounts payable work in the past unless I've had a conversation with Ryan about it. But you as a leader are doing your one on ones, you're doing your check ins all the time, and I mean most of the time you've probably were the one who hired Ryan in the first place and have their background information, and so being that connective tissue within the team is, I think, a little bit slept on and maybe not realized that there is a really big value add to that. And that's what good like coaches do, right? Like we go to sports, they're like, okay, we're developing a team because each member of the team has a different skill set that is valuable when we go and actually on game day need to advance. And we don't need everyone to be good at the same thing. We need people to be good at different things so we can go and coordinate that appropriately and leverage the overall team in order to go and win deals and push the business forward. So I think there's a big leadership aspect of that. And with all the chaos going on around as an SE leader, to my SE leaders out there, like, how can you help your team? Give some guidance, give some, hey, you guys are, there's like 5 things going on. I want you to focus on just this one thing. Like, I know you have 6 deals you're working on, and there's something that popped up from product marketing's pulling you this way. Hey, these are your priorities. Help the ICs like prioritize the list, and the priorities shift constantly. And I think helping with that mental load will, like, speaking as an IC, would be huge and very helpful, because from time to time it's like, all right, this popped up, this also popped up. I'm like, okay, these all seem very important. Like, help me organize myself and like prioritize it. And being at a higher level, you have a broader view of what's going on and have context that I might not be aware of. And that context can just help like simmer me down a little bit, and I can go and focus on executing.
Yeah, and I think, like, as a great leader, like, that's what great leadership does, and, like, how you need to work and operate is just making sure that your team has all those skill sets. Like, you don't we take it back to sports, right? Like, let's go to sports. You can't have a team full of 12 Michael Jordans, okay? One ball, not everyone can be Michael Jordan. But what you do need is you need somebody that's an amazing rebounder, and you need somebody that's a great passer. Maybe you need somebody that can just break the press, or maybe somebody that just comes into the game and all they do is just play defense. Same thing, like, as you build out an SC team, you want to make sure that you hire a team that's diverse in all these sort of different areas as to how you're going to help move your product, your company, and your sales forward, right? Like, maybe you want an SE that's really good in all three buckets. Maybe you need an SE that's really great at just the technical expertise because the rest of your team just doesn't have that level. Or maybe you need to bring in a product domain expert as an SE, somebody that's been doing this a long time, right? So if we're talking about like the cloud to prem migrations, okay, and like maybe my first two SEs are some SEs that were in a similar field and they've been working at it and like we're doing good and our company and our business is building, but now we're at an inflection point where we're starting to go after bigger and more complex logos. You know what I'd probably want to do? I'd probably want to bring in a product domain expert from one of those companies that understands that really well. So that way they can now come in and coach my current SEs that might have some gaps into what that process looks like. Now I have got 3 SEs that all have insane product domain expertise, 2 SEs that have been working, living, breathing it, knowing the challenges that can pass that along to the new SE that just came in. Now I got 3 SEs that can run and tackle and do a lot of things, but leverage the expertise off one and another, right? Now we're playing together. Now we're understanding what it is that we need to do. And when I have a shortcoming, I know exactly that I can reach out and pull in another teammate to help me out. You know what, Mr. or Mrs. Customer? The question that you just asked me, I have a teammate that's been doing this for a really long time. While I could explain that to you, what I think would be much better for you is that we set up some time to meet with them. I think that would go a long way. How does that sound to you? Awesome. Now you bring in that resource. They have an amazing conversation at a very high level of like all the nuances that have been happening in that product domain world. Now you break through, right? Like that's how you like get through some of those challenges. So as a leader, I do think knowing what those challenge, like what everybody's good at and making sure to like pass that along and how to build out your team is a skill set that if you're not thinking about it, you should be. You should be thinking about, man, where's my team at today? Where could they get better at? And should I bring in somebody that might be super helpful in this regard too?
Yeah, absolutely. Damn, we went on I don't even know where we started and how we ended up here. But I mean, I guess in this continuously changing landscape, I think the biggest takeaway I would say for anyone who's made it this far in the pod is, as an SC, it comes down to really understanding your customers and like like understanding it so much that you can explain it to them better than they understand it themselves, and using that knowledge to connect the dots for them, because they're going to place dots everywhere and not really know what to do with it. That's why they are looking to buy $100,000, 500,000, $1 million, $5 million worth of software to try and solve this problem, because they know they have all these issues. They just don't know how to connect them together. So like at the core of this, I think the biggest skill is like being able to deeply understand the problem in order for you to connect it for the customer.
Don't sweat it. Like, here's the piece that I want to say. AI is changing, meaning as an SE today, you might work at you might sell financial services. Tomorrow, you might sell, procurement software, or you might sell AR software, or you might sell space and rockets, right? Like this field's changing. SEs are needed across the board. FDE is being looked up everywhere. So you might switch from industry to industry, meaning you might not have that deep that deep product expertise to really understand the problem. Don't sweat it. You can learn that. It just takes time. I knew nothing about finance the day I started working as an SE for a finance company. A couple of years later, I'm speaking in conferences in front of hundreds of people explaining why this tool is a good fit for them. So it can be done, it just takes a little bit of time. You're not going to know it on day one when you join the company. That's okay. But what you will know is through every conversation that you have with a customer, as long as you are deeply listening to them, you will start to learn what those challenges and what those pains are. So maybe not day one, but 6 months later, you're going to have had hundreds of conversations with prospects and customers on different challenges they faced, and you will build up that product domain knowledge. You will talk to people internally through virtual cups of coffee or just your teammates to help you out and make sure that you deeply understand those things. 6 months to 12 months later, you can be at any company in any domain, in any industry that you want. You don't feel like you have to do the same thing that you always have done because that's all you ever know. Like sometimes just take a little leap of faith. You can do it. Don't be so worried. I think like I've had a lot of SEs reach out to me throughout the years, Samir, and I feel like that's one, I don't know, key question that I typically get is like, hey, I'm an SE in this field. How do I make the switch? How do I position myself to make the switch? Like, okay, like you can do it. Just don't worry about it too much. Like you'll figure it out. The product domain stuff will come, but you got to make sure that you flex the other things then, right? Like you got to make sure that you show like, hey, here's my technical stuff, here's my sales acumen, and here's why like I'll be able to pick up on the product domain stuff.
Yeah. Give yourself some grace. Things are changing fast. They will continue to change fast. And that's just, unfortunately or fortunately, just like the pace of things. Everyone's going through it. We're all a little bit nauseous, candidly, and it's okay. And it's very fun, exciting, scary, all at once.
Final thought for me too, just so you don't know, like I had somebody ask me the day a new release happened in AI, they're like, hey, what do we do for this? And I'm like, that just dropped this morning. Like I do not know. I can't possibly know. At least been a little bit of research. I don't know. Let's see where this goes. I really have no idea. It's okay. It's okay to be honest and just say, I don't know. You don't feel like you need to know the entire universe of AI and all these things that are out there. Somebody brings up a tool you've never heard of to say, I'm not sure, but let me go check it out. I don't know. That's like a final thought for me because I did have somebody do that to me not too long ago.
Yeah, it's okay to not know. You can go find out, and it just makes you more human. And also, I feel like each time I've said I don't know, but I'll go find out, it just deepens my relationship with that person and improves my credibility. So I've only had positive outcomes by responding with I don't know rather than trying to sound like I knew and come up with some BS answer. So with that, we'll wrap, and we'll talk to you all later.
Yeah. See you, everyone.